You've heard of self-image psychology that says that we always perform on the outside the way we see ourselves performing on the inside. We'll talk about this, but there is no improvement in performance on the outside until you improve the picture of yourself on the inside. It's interesting, they say that men and women who become successful in adult life are found to have read a lot of biographies and autobiographies of successful men and women when they were young. Is they love to read stories about men and women who had done something valuable and worthwhile with their lives. And many of you are like that. And as a result, when you read the story, you think of yourself being and doing the things that the people that you admire, successful people, have done. And those actually soak into you at an unconscious level, and they become part of your model of what a really good person would be. So that's the self-ideal. And it's very important when you think, what are the qualities that I admire the most in other people? Those are the qualities that you are most striving to emulate as an adult. And number two is your self-image. The self-image is the way you see yourself and the way you think about yourself in the present, in the moment. One of our friends, he asked me quickly if I could show him how he could be more effective in karate competitions. And I gave him a 3-part way of preparing his mind, which we'll talk about later, which consists of affirmation, visualization, and physical stance. And he said he walked in totally transformed from being nervous and uneasy and unsure in competition. He won 2 silver medals the next competition. He said it was unbelievable. He said it's unbelievable the difference that making a very quick transition in your thinking makes before you go straight into competition. This, by the way, makes a powerful difference just before you go into making a sales call or applying for a job. You can bring about a very fast transition. We'll teach you that method a little bit later. But your self-image is important. All improvement in your outer world begins with improvement in your self-image. That's why if you want to be thin, they say you have to think thin. What you do is you get pictures of people with fabulous bodies and you take a photograph of yourself and put it over their face and put it on your refrigerator and put it on your main mirror and put it in your briefcase. So every time you see this fabulous body, there's your face staring back at you. And your subconscious mind takes a photograph of it and says, aha, this is what you're supposed to look like. And your appetite starts to diminish and your appetite starts to change and you start to become more interested in healthy foods. So it's really quite amazing. We'll go into this at great depth. Your self-esteem is how you feel about yourself. And this is the most important of all discoveries. Your self-esteem is the determinant of your success and happiness in life. It's the most important thing of all. The best definition of self-esteem is how much you like yourself. How much you like yourself. I had a woman come up to me recently. She said, when she heard that from me, she said, she kept trying to say, I like myself. Your self-esteem can be built up by saying, I like myself. And she couldn't say it. She said her mother treated her terribly when she was growing up, and she hated herself. She hated herself. She said, and then one day she had a breakthrough, and she said, I don't like myself. I love myself. And it was, she said, it was like the sun coming up. She felt so happy, and all the old bitterness and resentment just fell away, and she just walked around just feeling happy that she loved herself. So say it. Say, I like myself. I love myself. Now, wonderfully enough, every time you say, I like myself, your overall self-concept goes up. As your overall self-concept goes up, your ability to perform and your levels of effectiveness in every area of your life go up as well. So the more you like yourself, the better you do in every single area. The more you like yourself, the better a salesperson you are, the better a parent you are, the better a boss you are, the better a friend you are, the better you do any skill, the better you learn, the better your memory is, the more creative, the more ideas you have. And when you have high self-esteem, I call this the reactor core of your nuclear personality. When your reactor core goes off, it explodes and you become the best person you could possibly be, and you are just happy. And the more you like yourself, the more you like other people, and the more they like you back. The more you like yourself, the more you really like others. If you look back over the years, you realize those kids all had high self-esteem. They came from really positive families, and they were just really happy kids, and all the other kids wanted to be around those kids. And they were the presidents of everything, and the head of the teams, and the heads of the student body. You see, people will often say, what about people who have too much self-esteem? No, there's no such thing. People who are arrogant or pushy or overbearing are not people with high self-esteem. They're people with low self-esteem engaging in compensatory behaviors. People with high self-esteem they're okay with themselves. And so what they do is they get out of themselves. They're no longer preoccupied with themselves. What are they thinking about me? And, oh my God, did I do the right thing? Is they're quite happy with themselves, so they're into you, and they're able to focus on you. I don't know if you remember when we were in high school, there were kids who were always really popular, and everybody flocked around them like bees to honey. Everybody wanted to promote those people and wanted to be like them. Because when you really like yourself, you like others, and you make others feel good about themselves. And you can achieve this by just saying, I like myself. We used to say, when you get up in the morning, you start saying, I like myself, like pumping yourself up. I like it. And you go through the day, say, I like myself, I like it. But when I first learned this, I'd say it 10, 20, 50, 100 times a day. My self-esteem was so low. I used to say I was so far behind, I thought I was first. And most of us start off with low self-esteem as a result of mistakes that parents make. And we'll talk about all this. So your self-esteem is the core of your personality. It's the most important thing of all. And the more you say, I like myself, the more your self-esteem goes up. You have a major reversal or disappointment or setback, or somebody's rude or dishonest with you, say, wait a minute, I like myself. And when you say, I like myself, because your mind can only hold one thought at a time, the words, I like myself, cancel out all negative thoughts. You can't say, I like myself, and have a negative thought at the same time. So moving on, we said that you were born as pure potential. When a child comes into this world, they are unique and different from any other child that has ever existed. And we say every child comes into the world with a high need for love and touching, When your children are infants, they cry a lot. And one of the reasons that they cry as an infant is not necessarily because their diapers are wet or because they're hungry, is they're trying to find out, am I safe? Am I in a safe world? Am I in a secure world? Am I okay? And when the parent comes and picks them up and hugs them and touches them and talks to them, then they register at a deep level, I'm okay, I'm safe. The job of parents, especially in the first 3 to 5 years, is to build that solid self-concept like concrete so that the child knows that they are good and desirable and attractive and in a safe world. And that they have that, then they have no deficiency needs. Most adults spend most of their adult life trying to compensate for the deficiencies they experienced in childhood. If they didn't have enough love and touching, they're always seeking out the approval of other people. If they didn't have enough reassurance, they're constantly insecure as adults. Whenever you see an adult that is having problems, you see a problem that took place in the first 3 to 5 years. And almost invariably, it was a lack of love, a lack of sufficient love. A psychologist, a friend of mine, said, if you take all of modern psychology, it can be summarized in this, is that all psychological problems stem back to love withheld at the critical formative times. So we say that every child needs love like roses need rain. And they need sunshine. They need roses and rain and sunshine. And you cannot give a child too much love in their formative years. You cannot overdo it. There are some schools of thought said you'll make this child dependent or you'll make the child a sissy. Au contraire, the exact opposite happens. When you lavish your children with love when they're young, they grow up strong and self-confident with high self-esteem, positive self-images. They feel terrific about themselves. Lack of love causes all the deficiencies that we see in adult life. The challenge is, if you look at the inner cities, and I just read a study on this, is that many of the mothers with multiple illegitimate children are also drinking and smoking dope, and the kids have no support, no encouragement. They have no nothing. And so they're set up for failure as adults. Another thing that's even worse is that sometimes one or both parents are so busy that they don't have time with the children. Children are born with 2 attributes. The first attribute is they are fearless. Children come into the world totally unafraid. In fact, children only have 2 fears when they're born, the fear of loud noises and the fear of falling. Some parents think it's funny to drop the child quickly, and the child screams and goes like this. They think it's funny. You can set up within the child a trauma in early childhood where the child can be afraid of falling, afraid of distances, afraid of spaces, afraid of stairs, afraid of all kinds of things by simply dropping them because they think it's funny. And of course, loud noises. Loud noises shock the child and scare the child. So you want to create an environment where those 2 don't happen. And this is experienced in the words, I can. The words of fearlessness is, I can do anything. They run around, they touch, they taste, they feel, they grab knives, they run out into traffic. They're unafraid of it. They don't know enough to be afraid. Anybody who's ever raised children knows that for the first 10 years of your life, you have to prevent them from killing themselves. Because they're little suicide bombers. They just don't understand the danger that exists. We have a swimming pool, and just after we'd had our first child, some friends of ours who also had a child She was on the phone. Doctor left the doors open. The little baby crawled out into the backyard and into the pool and onto the cover on the jacuzzi and crawled into the cover, and of course fell, and the cover then closed over the child. Talk on the phone, talk on the phone. The child was dead 30 seconds later. And of course the family never recovered from it. The husband and wife never recovered. They eventually divorced. It was just a terrible thing because they didn't realize you don't leave children alone. Our children were not alone for 10 years. They were never out of the sight of an adult for the first 10 years because children can kill themselves. As there were bars and bolts, and Barbara still has bars and bolts on the door. She doesn't want me to go out. But the thing is that children are unafraid of anything in their formative years because they don't know enough to be afraid. The second attitude that they have, the second attribute they have is they're completely spontaneous. They laugh, they cry, they peep, they poo, they do anything they want. They're completely spontaneous, which is expressed in the attitude, I don't have to. I don't have to do anything. They're completely free spirits when they're children. So the ideal child comes into the world, they are completely fearless and completely spontaneous. And so our natural birthright is to be unafraid and uninhibited. To be unafraid and uninhibited. And we go back to the principle of control. Where do you feel most in control? In the situation where you can be both unafraid and uninhibited. When you're with people that you know and love or know and love you, so you cannot say the wrong thing, and maybe you've had a little bit of wine or a lot, and you just become completely unafraid and uninhibited, and you're relaxed and you're spontaneous and you laugh and you have a great time. This is your normal birthright. This is what all children are meant to be. And unfortunately, children learn in two ways. The first is they learn by imitation, especially of their parents, of one or both parents. Many children, surprisingly enough, will imitate one parent, and some other children will imitate another parent. We will almost see them as the mirror. Mostly the female children imitate the mother, and the male children imitate the father. But we imitate them. I remember my children were young. They would do something, and I would say, you stop that.